already have 2 products from Renaissance Alpha portfolios on your on IFL platform. So just a minute. So yes, so this is the Alpha Core and Satellite fact sheet. Okay, and as you can see the performance, I hope everybody can see my screen. This fact sheet is for March. April fact sheet, I think next week, yeah, around Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll release the fact sheet for next month, April month also. And if you can see the performance, last 1 year we've delivered 43% return versus Nifty benchmark of 20%. So there's been a decent outperformance, and I think in almost all the buckets, 7%, 4%, we are doing well. And there's been a consistent outperformance versus a benchmark. Similar is the case with Alpha Dynamic Thematic also. Last 1 month the fund has been the fund is up 9%. Last 6 months the fund is up 12.5% in since inception. So the inception date is 1st June. So this fund hasn't even completed 1 year, but since inception, which is 1st June, fund has delivered 38.5% return versus benchmark of 12%. So we are pretty satisfied with what we are with the way our funds are performing. Now, very importantly, what are the recent changes that we've done to the portfolio? So this is the Alpha Core and Satellite portfolio. What we've done in this fund is that so all these activity in the fund that we've done, we're talking about Jan to April. So that is like a good 4-month period, right? So we've bought Reliance Industries. I'm sure all of you are aware. The stock has done very well of late. Last 2 months, the stock is up more than 20% up. Similar is the case with ITC also. I think it was a beaten down stock, and we realized that I'd say let me spend 1 minute on ITC. ITC is a classic consumer company jinko inflation is not hitting as hard as the likes of HUL and Nestle and Britannia of the world, right? And they have a pricing power. For last so many years, the taxation structure on cigarette has been very, very, very comfortable. So ITC stock has done very well. We've also added Coal India and NTPC, right? And I think our view is that over the next 2-3 years, India's economic recovery will be very strong. Okay, India will see a strong recovery in economy. In fact, had it not been for this crisis, case of Russia, Ukraine, inflation, etc., का problem नहीं होता, so I can tell you for sure this year would have crossed 9% GDP growth also. Okay, and I think we can all see malls are full, GST collections are at all-time high on a monthly basis, right? So in this background, what we think is that some of the high cash flow, and at the same time, power is something which supports economic growth, right? There cannot be any economic growth without power. And add to that, we are living in a time when inflation is high. So these are companies which have very high dividend yield, low PE. So classic case when these stocks should do very well, right? So these are the stocks that we've added, and I can tell you most of them have done reasonably well. We are very comfortable with the kind of buy exposures we've taken in this portfolio. And on the other hand, what we've exited is Indian Hotels, Inox Leisure. These two stocks, I can tell you, these two stocks over the last 6 months have delivered phenomenal returns. ये दोनों stocks कोविड अनलॉक इंडिया के थीम में अनलॉक थीम में बैठता था, राइट? एंड अनलॉक थीम के अंदर इन दोनों स्टॉक्स की एक अच्छी खासियत ये थी कि इनके सबके बैलेंस शीट वाज वेरी कंफर्टेबल. ओके, इंडियन होटल के आदमी कुछ डेट था, बट दे आर बैक्ड बाय टाटा, सो हमको उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं थी, right? And similar is the case with Ashok Leyland and Bank of Baroda also. Last 6-9 months we've made decent money in these companies. Ashok Leyland we were slightly worried, कि despite CV cycle तो यहाँ से improve ही होना है. I have no doubts on that, right? But in the intermittent, because steel or commodity prices have been very high, it could pinch their margins. इसके लिए हमने ये हमने complete exit कर दिए 4 stocks, and we bought these 4 stocks, and I think this is the only thing that we've done in the portfolio for last 4 months. As I told you, the performance has been very good, and I think April month also, as you see the next month fact sheet, April month performance has been also very good. So that is as far as core and satellite is concerned. Alpha Dynamic Thematic also, Alpha Dynamic Thematic is one of those funds wherein the churn ratios are very low actually, because as is the construct of this fund, हम एक थीम को चलाते हैं साल 2 साल के लिए, ओके? और हम जब स्टार्टिंग में स्टॉक लेते हैं तो हमारे फिल्टर्स वैसे ही बहुत स्ट्रांग होते हैं. हम ज्यादा हाई लेवरेज कंपनीज नहीं लेते हैं, हम लीडर इन द सेक्टर वाली कंपनी होती है उन्हीं को लेते हैं, राइट? तो टिपिकली क्या होता है, जब ये थीम चलती है हमारी, तो ये जो लीडर वाली कंपनी होती है, इनकी बैलेंस शीट स्ट्रांग है, ग्रोथ स्ट्रांग है, मैनेजमेंट स्ट्रांग है, दे आर द फर्स्ट वंस टू रन, Okay, and hence, you would see that, VIP industry is a classic case, leader in the luggage industry, zero date company. लगेज इंडस्ट्री में बहुत बड़ा अनऑर्गेनाइज स्पेस, अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर है, जिसको धीरे 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 वीआईपी सेट टू गेन मार्केट शेयर देयर. तो इसके लिए वीआईपी का हमने लिया था, एंड वीआईपी स्टॉक डिलीवर्ड फिनोमिनल रिटर्न्स. आई थिंक इन लास्ट 1 year it has more than doubled, and we are very happy. Similar is the case with United Breweries also. The stock delivered very good returns, about 50% in last 1 year. So we exited these two stocks. And on the other hand, we bought 4 stocks. I think Shopper Stop is in the midst of a complete turnaround story. You will realize that over the next 2-3 years, they are doing wonderful stuff in terms of expansion and in terms of their omni-channel presence. I think RB stock, by the way, RB stock 10% up tha, and I think the stock will do very well from here on over the next 1 year. We've added 2 small banks, City Union Bank and DC Bank. I think the construct here is very simple. These are small banks, with which 95% plus लेंडिंग जो होती है इनकी सिक्योर्ड लेंडिंग होती है, राइट. सिक्योर्ड लेंडिंग करते हैं, अनसिक्योर्ड लेंडिंग नहीं करते. तो सिक्योर्ड लेंडिंग में क्या होता है कि अगर कोई लोन एनपीए भी हो जाता है तभी भी लॉस 20-30% ज्यादा नहीं होता. ओके, नाउ प्रॉब्लम इज दैट ये दोनों बैंक्स जो थी ये एसएमई और एमएसएमई के सेक्टर्स को केटर करती थी. एसएमईज एंड एमएसएमईज वर द वर्स्ट अफेक्टेड इन कोविड. ओके, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट if you see ICICI Bank and Axis Bank and HDFC Bank have bounced back, right? पर इन कंपनियों में अभी प्री कोविड का भाव नहीं आया, राइट. बट गिवन दैट इनका कंप्लीट सिक्योर्ड एक्सपोजर है, दे हैव बीन इन बिजनेस फॉर लास्ट 20 years. लास्ट 2 years इन्होंने अपनी ग्रोथ को मॉडरेट कर दिया था, बिकॉज ये लोग एग्जिस्टिंग बुक को मॉनिटर करना चाहते थे कि हमारे एक्सिस्टिंग बुक में से एनपीए का क्या प्रॉब्लम होगा. सो दे हैव मॉनिटर्ड द बुक, their customers are doing very well, it's a secured exposure, so NPA levels are expected to be very low, and now once again they are on the growth path, right? So clearly, and I can tell you DCB Bank तो less than book value पे available है आपको. Okay, so we've added City Union Bank and DCB Bank. And I think over the next 1 year, I'll not be surprised if these stocks deliver 50 to 100% returns. And I think we are very comfortable with these 2 banks that we own at this price. And on a relative basis, both in terms of growth and in terms of valuations, हमको in the small banking space, I think this is our top pick. The last exposure that we can discuss is AppTech. AppTech is a very, very, very unique turnaround story. It is in the business of imparting skill-based, job-based एजुकेशन सिस्टम. आई थिंक स्किल इंडिया पे गवर्नमेंट का बहुत फोकस है. नाउ this delivery mechanism which was purely physical earlier, now in COVID they have mastered the delivery mechanism via digitally also. Okay, so now what happens is that they can deliver all their processes in digital manner, not only in India but across the globe. And apart from that, they have launched their own platform also, right? But unlike Unacademy and Byju's, they are not in that loss making model, so they will grow it very gradually. So I think over the next 2, 3, 4 years, we are expecting a very, very, very strong profit growth in this company. And by the way, this company is a debt-free company, right? So one thing which is very important from our perspective is that अगर हम कोई छोटी कंपनी खरीदे, बड़ी कंपनी खरीदे, हमको ऐसी कंपनी खरीदनी है जो बिजनेस से बाहर नहीं जा सकती, बिकॉज उनका बैलेंस शीट स्ट्रॉन्ग होना चाहिए, मैनेजमेंट स्ट्रॉन्ग होना चाहिए. तो AppTech actually ticks all the boxes. So this is what we've done in the 2 portfolio, and as you've already seen. The performance has been very satisfactory, both in alpha dynamic, thematic, and core and satellite. Now coming to the most important and perhaps something which is of everybody's interest is the market outlook. And I actually sum up my view on the market in very simple 3 words: opportunity in adversity. Right? And why I say that, I think as we run through this slide very quickly over the next 10, 12, 15 minutes, I think there are several opportunities while there are several adversities जो हम सबको मालूम है, right? Because news channels हमको सिर्फ जो न्यूज सबसे ज्यादा फ्लैश करती है ना, यूएस इन्फ्लेशन, यूक्रेन वॉर, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा, ये सब हमको बहुत ज्यादा टीवी पे चैनल में दिखाया जाता है. ओके, सो वी आर ऑल अवेयर ऑफ द एडवर्सिटीज. ओके, बट आई थिंक इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दैट इन द मिड्स ऑफ ऑल दिस नॉइज, जो इतना हंगामा हो रहा है, वी शुड नॉट लूज साइड ऑफ द बिगर पिक्चर. And that is very important, because at the end of the day, this bigger picture is what delivers returns to us and our investors, right? So my only suggestion or advice to all of them present on this call is that in the short term volatility, let's not lose the sight of the bigger picture, which is the opportunity in front of India. And I think India over the next 4, 5, 6 years will have a very, very, very strong secular growth run, and I'll discuss in the subsequent slide why I say that. I think so. Let's start with what are the opportunities in front of us. I think one of the biggest reform that India has ever seen in last 20 years or maybe 30 years after 1991, in my view, right, is this PLI scheme, Production Linked Incentive Scheme. हमने इसके बारे में सबने सुन लिया है, and I can tell you one of the best things when I actually went through the details of this scheme, one of the best thing that I liked about the scheme is that ये सारी की सारी schemes जो है गवर्नमेंट ने इंडस्ट्री एसोसिएशन के साथ बैठ के बनाई है, राइट। इसके लिए आप देखोगे हर स्कीम एप्पल टू एप्पल सेम नहीं है, हर इंडस्ट्री के लिए अलग टाइप की स्कीम बनाई है, बिकॉज इंडस्ट्री एसोसिएशन के साथ बैठ के बोला कि हम ये स्कीम तो बना देंगे। आज गवर्नमेंट में इंडिया में लास्ट 75 ईयर्स में 50 स्कीमें बनी है, राइट, बट सक्सेस रेशियो क्या है? सक्सेस रेशियो इज वेरी पुअर। बट व्हेन यू सिट डाउन विद द इंडस्ट्री एसोसिएशंस एंड मेक दीस स्कीम्स, you make sure that you give to the industry what the industry really wants, राइट। इंडस्ट्री को ए चाहिए, आपने बी दे दिया, आप कहने के लिए तो आप बोल रहे हो कि हमने बी का इतना बड़ा इंसेंटिव दे दिया, पर इंडस्ट्री को बेनिफिट तो नहीं हुआ। सो द बिगेस्ट टेक अवे दैट आई हैड फ्रॉम दिस स्कीम इज दैट मोस्ट ऑफ द स्कीम्स इंडस्ट्री एसोसिएशन के साथ बैठ के बनाई है, एंड दैट इज द रीजन यू विल सी bidding in all the schemes, I think except one or two, have been significantly more than what government can offer. And I think over the next 3-4 years, the total outlay in this scheme is about 2.6 trillion, which is like 2.6 lakh crores. Other things remaining constant, सिर्फ PLI की वजह से, only because of PLI, GDP में 1 to 1.5% का growth आ सकता है, which is sizable, which is significant. I think it's very, very, very important. The second thing out here, which is very important to understand, is the labor reform. I think in the midst of lot of other news flows, maybe I don't know इसकी कितनी इंपॉर्टेंस लोगों को समझ में आई नहीं, बट जस्ट थिंक अबाउट इट दिस वे। हम हमारे क्लाइंट्स के साथ जाते हैं, व्हाट वी वांट इज दैट वी वांट क्लाइंट ऑनबोर्डिंग एवरीथिंग टू बी वेरी सिंपल। सिमिलर इज द केस फॉर अ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनी, दे हैड 44 सेंट्रल लॉज, हर चीज के लिए दे हैड अ लॉ, right? I mean, it was very difficult. Now those 44 central laws have been converted to 4 codes. Life has become very easy. And I can tell you all the things that we are discussing now, be it PLI, be it labor law, or be it any other thing, all of them point towards one thing, which is the recovering the manufacturing part of the economy. And I think that is very, very important. Because अगर आप इंडिया की लास्ट 12-13 साल की हिस्ट्री देखें, हेडलाइन जीडीपी ग्रोथ कहने के लिए 6, 6.5-7% रहा हुआ है, which is fine. Okay, but if you get into the detail, you will realize that only consumer-oriented business have done well. Only consumer-oriented stocks have done well, right? Manufacturing part of the economy, the recession में थी. That is the reason capex cycle नहीं आ रहा था. Now is the time when manufacturing part of the economy is reviving, and that will deliver 8-9% GDP growth rate for India over the next 4-5 years. And that is the reason I just highlighted a couple of minutes back that India में let's not lose sight of the bigger picture. Right? Once again, this is one very, very, very important data point. You look at the credit growth. India में growth आई कैसे? Capexes तो होंगे, Capexes होंगे कब? जब बैंक रेट ग्रोथ होगी। Last 1 year में बैंक रेट ग्रोथ आप देखिए, right? And this blue line is the most important line, because ये green line जो है ना, ये तो total non-food credit, मतलब total industry में जो credit growth हो रही है वो है, but blue line ये है कि within this industry growth कितनी, within this total growth industry में कितना growth किया है, right? So this excludes your personal loan, your credit card, your home loan, etc., etc. वो तो वैसे भी ठीक ही कर रहा था, but this is the core borrowing that corporates are doing for putting up new capexes for working capital, and there you see a 0.5% negative growth से this has jumped to 6.5%. Take a 6 month view, ये 10% cross कर जाएगा, right? Which is once again another indicator that on ground you can see things are improving. Manufacturing part of the economy is recovering. Apart from manufacturing part of the economy, one thing which is I think very big positive in India's perspective is real estate. And I think real estate is very, very, very important, because real estate का दो बहुत बड़े benefit है. The biggest benefit is it is one of the largest employers of semi-skilled and unskilled labor. इंडिया का सबसे बड़ा सप्लाई क्या है? इंडिया में 140 करोड़ लोग हैं, right? And there we have a problem of unemployment, right? And more so for semi-skilled and unskilled people. Real estate gives employment to that, right? And I think second benefit out here is that real estate gives a multiplier effect in terms of demand to several sectors, be it cement, building materials, metals, etc., which essentially means the entire economy comes into the growth mode. I think so. You have a recovery in the manufacturing part of the economy, you have recovery in real estate, and this is happening at a time when interest rates are moderate and banks' balance sheet is very strong. For a second, give it a thought, connect all the dots. I think it is very easy to conclude, and it is very easy to foresee and manufacturing part of the economy is here to revive very big time. In terms of the economy's underlying health, if you see, I think this is the Naukri's jobs peak index. It is showing a consistent improvement. This data is until Jan 22. After Jan 22, अगर आप देखें तो this 2716 has further increased to 2832. Okay, so this index is showing continuous improvement. I think one data point which is very, very, very interesting and very, very surprising, not really surprising, but very interesting to see is the FII flow. Now look at this chart. We are all aware that last 2 साल में there have been FII net selling of more than 2.5 lakh crores. In fact, last 15 months में 2,20,000 crore की net FII outflow हो गई है. More importantly, if you actually look at cumulative data from 2008, cumulative net FII flow from 2008 has become negative. Okay, but I can tell you one thing. Think about it this way: at 8% odd, say 7.5 to 8.5% for the next 2-3 years in India. With this growth rate, India is the fastest growing economy in the world. China का government का इस साल का target is 5.5%, and with the kind of lockdowns that we have in China, even if they touch 5%, I'll be surprised, right? Internally, I'm sure they would be working with a 4.5% number. अब ये FIIs ने exit तो मार दिया, right? Why have they exited? Because of this global interest rate imbalance, flight to safety, etc., right? But as the dust settles down, जब शांति आ जाएगी, FIIs don't have an option not to invest into the largest and into the fastest growing economy in the world, right? And this, think about it this way, globally इतना कुछ ऊपर नीचे हो गया है, FII selling इतनी बड़ी हो गई इंडिया में, Nifty index is just 10% down from its peak. Now when this 2-3 lakh crore comes back into the market, think of it where the index can go, where they can take the index to. Okay, so there is one way, glass half full आप देखें, glass half empty आप देखें, right? I see it glass half full, and I see a lot of opportunities in terms of, because FIs don't have an option not to invest in India. I think they will have to come back because India is the fastest growing economy. Now this is really important to understand why I think over the next 3-4 years India will do very good. And just one data point before we start into the adversities part. The mother of all bull run, 2003 से 2007 का जो cycle था, that is called the mother of all bull run in India's context. During this 5-year period when index actually doubled, tripled or grew 4x, there was at least 5 times जब index ऊपर से 10% गिरा. Index has fallen more than 10% at least 5 times. Okay, but it did not change the direction of the bull market. Okay, why I'm highlighting this is that in a bull market, whenever there is a correction, these corrections are shallow. These corrections are not very deep. And hence at some level, you always see buying coming up and the long-term trend doesn't change. Okay. And that is why I'm saying, let's not miss the sight of the bigger picture when there is too much short-term volatility. I think in fact, this is just a great opportunity to enter. So I think now in terms of adversity, I think we are all aware, but just some important data points. China, 40% of the countries in lockdowns, and they have a very strict zero COVID policy, which means that even if there is one case in one small suburb, the entire suburb has to face lockdowns, and then there are very strict lockdowns. When they say lockdown, they really enforce it. Unfortunately, 8 of the 10 world's largest container ports, are in China. So we are already seeing some supply chain issues happening because China, for all what they have done in last 25 years, they are the largest exporter to the world, right? So China में अगर कोविड का प्रॉब्लम होगा, right? But तो supply chain problem globe में होगी, right? But the most important thing out here is to understand is that this COVID problem is not going to be there forever. इंडिया में 2 बड़े कोविड वेव्स आए थे, थर्ड कोविड वेव माइल्ड था, right? But India recovered out of it, and then economy bounced back. I think China will also bounce back after 2 or max 2 months, 2.5 months in my view. And then the supply chain crisis will also solve, right? But until then, over the next 1 quarter or so, I think we'll have some issues with global supply chains. The companies full year result declare करेंगे, you will see, these companies highlighting that they are facing some issues in the short term. But I think that doesn't change our long-term view once again. In terms of Russia and Ukraine war, I think it is very important to understand this table shows Russia के साथ India का जो trade है. You look at the last 10 years, right? Average trade between Russia and India is just about 10, 11, 12%, which includes imports and exports both. And sorry, 10, 11 billion dollars. Okay. And this 10, 11 billion dollar means just 1.5% of India's total trade. And within this also, if you exclude some of the defense purchases, some of the fertilizer thing, this number will reduce more than 50%. Why I'm highlighting this data point is that while this Russia-Ukraine crisis is happening at a very, it's happening at a very brutal way, but India को direct impact नहीं है, okay? Indirect impact जरूर है, because you'll see India is a large importer of commodities, and commodity prices are up anywhere between 15 to 20%, right? And this is a short-term issue that India has to face. And because of these adversities, what would happen is that in the short run, for the next 1 or 2 quarters, we could have more inflationary scenario. Our India's import bill could increase, which essentially means that fiscal deficit will also increase. To counter inflation, interest rates will have to be high, and there could be short-term downgrade in corporate earnings, right? But I can tell you, these are all short-term in nature. We are all here sitting on 28th of April, 6 months down the line. I'm sure we'll not be talking about all that. Okay. And markets, and that is exactly the reason that markets haven't tanked 20-30%, right? They've tanked like about 10-15% from its top, because market also understands collectively that this is a short-term problem. With this in the background, I think India's GDP growth this year we can see 7.5-8%, and then next year and onwards 8-8.5% GDP growth आएगा. And with that, India will become, once again, just to re-highlight, India will be the fastest growing economy, right? And that too by a wide difference. पहले India और China का जो GDP differential था वो 1-2% का होता था, right? But now India at 8.5%, China at 5% means we are going 3% faster than China, which is like a sizable difference. So that is where I will end my conversation. This is my Twitter handle, and this is Alpha Portfolio's Twitter handle. I keep on tweeting about my views on equity markets and stocks and sectors. If at all you guys are interested in that, you can follow our handles on Twitter.